the EPA estimates at least 50% of homes have some level of mold and water damage. And a lot of it's just undetected. It's just not even known. Whole home leak detecting is something that anyone can add new construction or on their existing homes now. And that's something that is monitoring the flow of your plumbing and will alert you if it detects a leak or a micro leak that might be going on in your plumbing behind your walls.
Today on Heal Thyself, I'm joined by Christine Cimabue. She's a visionary leader in the construction industry who's redefining what does it mean to build a healthy, holistic home. Christine specializes in creating spaces that prioritize healthy occupancy first for the families. She's focusing on mitigating mold, reducing EMF exposure, and actually protecting our home from all those harmful chemicals. In this episode, we're going to dive deep into the essentials of building a safe, holistic environment for you and your family with actionable tips to transform your living space into a true, healthy, healing sanctuary. Thank you for joining this episode of Heal Thyself. To support the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. It gives us the opportunity to really expand this knowledge to people who need it most, and you can do your part by just sharing the love. Again, thank you for listening. I'm forever grateful, and I love you all. Let's get started. Okay, Christine, thank you for joining the show. Ooh, do I have some juicy questions for you because your work is right up my alley, and I'm so excited to really get into it. You know, I went on a walk the other day, and there was these beautiful homes like up near the Venice canals, and two homes are being rebuilt. Yeah, so they demolished it from the ground up. They have all the foundation. And the other day it was raining, like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, it was raining.
Okay.
And I'm walking and I'm seeing all of the rain, the piles of lumber in the front, mud around it, the foundation getting wet. So my question to you, and like a lot of people are really interested, can a brand new build still be moldy?
So can a new build be healthy or can it potentially be toxic to you? And the answer is yes to both. Yes, because it really has to do with you communicating your expectations. So now if you were to purchase a home that's being built in like a master plan community and you pick floor plan A, B, or C, and then that thing's built in 4 to 6 months, there's not a whole lot of time to pause, let lumber dry out, do mold testing. So not all new builds, just because they're new, are going to be healthy. There's potential water damage, there's VOCs, there's other toxins. But on the flip side of that, if you're going to be doing a new construction in the custom new build realm, where you have a ton of involvement and you're involved in communicating your expectations, now that's a good avenue to actually have control over the selections and the building details to have a healthy home.
Okay, so you say the word healthy home,
Yeah.
but how do you define healthy home?
Interesting. So the way that you might define a healthy home would be different than how I would define it. And it's also going to be really different than how your builder is going to define it. And so a healthy home, I tell people to look at a hierarchy because we can't do it all. We can't have everything that we're expecting most of the time. There's a budget involved. And so starting with a hierarchy, and it's usually in one of 4 categories, probably mold and water damage mitigation, EMF mitigation, and then maybe clean water, clean filtered air. Like we've got one of those that's going to be like our number one. Most of the time I see with my clients, it's water damage and mold mitigation. So we want to really get our most bang for our buck there, put our focus there. So that's going to be different for everyone. Someone else might be heavily EMF sensitive and their number one priority is going to be EMF mitigation. So overall, I define a healthy home as one that is prioritizing occupant health over anything else. Like that's number one.
Over things like what? Aesthetics, the style, location, the sort of construction, what are the other things that now maybe a builder or a Toll Brothers, like you said, what are they prioritizing over our health?
Okay, so occupant health is really the number one goal of a healthy home. But if you look at building code standards and just the way construction is done today, there's really no building code that prioritizes occupant health. Here in California, we do a great deal of emphasizing energy efficiency, but there are some trade-offs with that. An example of that would be the lighting. Now, incandescent, that beautiful, like full spectrum lighting, you can't have that in your home built today. It won't pass building codes. But that type of lighting is so much better for our circadian rhythm. Now you have to have LED lights everywhere. So, California and building codes may see that as a high priority. Let's push for this energy efficiency, but there's trade-offs there. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
I see. So that's just a really clear example. Like, we know, I went to London and I think they still use incandescent because the lighting was so much warmer. I was actually appreciative how I thought that everyone was just prioritizing nice warm lighting, but in my mind I'm just like, oh, it's the standard because everywhere you pass, minus like maybe one or two convenience stores were fluorescent, everything's warm.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their lighting really nice and tight, like it looks beautiful there. But here they've removed that incandescent because it's not energy saving.
Right. It uses quite a bit of energy.
It uses energy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's part of the reason. But also there's timers that are required and occupancy sensors, now requirements for bathrooms and closets. They've got to, switch off the moment somebody leaves that room. So
Yeah.
just overall, I'm a really big believer as a contractor myself that building a home to building code standards, that is the bare minimum. If you leave it in the hands of the architect and the contractor, to build you this beautiful home, it is very likely that will be built to building code standards. And we just got to do so much better.
So I'm thinking in terms of vitamins, bare minimum for vitamins, so you don't have a disease.
Yeah.
That's where we're hitting bare minimums.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what do we need to do as empowered soon to be homeowners of a new home? Like, this information is not readily available outside of people like you. Like, we're not really learning that much of like, what do I ask of the architect? What do I ask of the contractor? And I can imagine how much resistant you might be met with also. Like, what are really important things we need to ask of our contractors and architects in order to make sure we're coming into a quote unquote healthy home that is going to manage the occupant health to the highest level?
Okay. So over the next 5 hours, I'll explain to you. But that is the truth, is that to really get into the meat of it, and people often ask me, do you have a list? Can you give me a list?
Right. What's a handbook?
And it's so frustrating for people when I say there's no list. There's really not, because kind of getting that idea of like, home should not be this cookie cutter production home, pick A, B, or C. Like, how many children do you have? Do you homeschool? Are you home a lot? Do we need to control indoor humidity levels? Like, all of these things for like how you function in your home should really be customized to your climate zone and how you use the space as occupants. So, in a nutshell, I do really encourage people to start with a good architect, because we don't want to be coming up with strategy during construction. We don't want to be swapping out insulation. And a big one, going back to the energy efficiency, is I'll get a call or someone reach out to me saying, I'm mid-construction, the contractor's, going to start putting spray foam insulation in next week. Help, what can I do? What can I swap out? And it pains me to say, because their spray foam's got its own problems, but you can't just swap those things out and say, well, swap out spray foam and you can go ahead and stick in sheep's wool. There are, code requirements around insulation and strategies that need to be planned during the architectural planning stage. So my biggest piece of advice would be to really emphasize the planning and the design, communicating your expectations to the architect. And maybe that is, hey, I want to build this home. And one thing I know is I definitely don't want spray foam. So
Yeah.
collaborating during that stage around that, or I definitely want whole home air filtration, or whatever your priorities are, make sure those are on a set of plans because that's your contract.
I see. I see. I see. You see me not ever having a home built. Now I'm learning a lot of stuff. That's the contract. So it's really important for us to be in the know of these things before we even sit down and say, I want to build a home, and then have an architect come in. And before any contractors are involved, the plan's got to be in there.
Yeah, there's a really big benefit to having your plans essentially communicate your expectations for you. Because when you're working with that architect and going through details of like, I really want my bathrooms really waterproofed, create them as like this wet room without
Mm-hmm.
wallpaper and porous materials, like talking about more robust building details and thought through how your home's going to manage water damage potentially. And so when your plans are really dialed in, you can then give those plans to potential contractors, and it's doing a lot of explaining for you.
I see. All right. Homes today. How often are we going to find pre-built homes, maybe from the 70s, 80s, 90s, that are water damaged?
Ooh, well, if you want to go to the EPA statistic, which is on the light side, the EPA estimates at least 50% of homes have some level of mold and water damage.
Hmm.
That is likely much higher. And a lot of it's just undetected. It's just not even known, which I kind of tie the analogy to, like, if you were to go to a car dealership today, it's like this beautiful brand new car, you love it, everything outside's like awesome. You get in the car, there's no dashboard. You don't know anything else besides your thermostat in there and if you're running low on gas. You don't know if there's a check engine light,
Mhm.
when you have to change anything, like, are you going to buy that car? Probably not. You don't have any information about that car, but yet we're buying, $1 million+ homes
Mhm.
and we have a thermostat. That's it.
Mhm.
What's the air quality?
Mhm.
Are there leaks? There's no leak management system. There's no information for us to really monitor our homes to know if they're healthy.
Is it true that before a certain date, homes were built in a certain way that were more mold proof, or is that a myth? I thought I heard
Mm.
somewhere like if your home was built before like the 50s, it was built with this sort of material that is more waterproof and mold proof, but then something happened at a certain point and then the materials got way less quality and now your risk goes up or something. Let me share something with you that has been a absolute game changer. I just had one on last night and was having a conversation with it. Is a red light mask from Bond Charge. My face was glowing red in this conversation. And I really first discovered it when I was looking for natural solutions for fine lines and wrinkles. Yes, I'm 40. I'm getting up there. And I want something that's backed by science. And I know that red light therapy is one of the major things we're missing in the beauty industry and healthy skin. And what sets this mask apart is that it's strong. A lot of these red lights, they're not strong enough to do much. You got to wear them for a really long time. This one, you don't have to. And they remove all the sleep disrupting blue and green light frequencies so you can wear it at night. And that's when I do it. Like when I'm winding down, if I have a little movie on or something, I put it on all the time. I get the bang for the buck while I'm doing two things. And it uses near infrared and red light to boost collagen production. You want to do it from the root. You can't always eat collagen and think your skin's going to be better. You want to absolutely stimulate the production of collagen, and you do it with red light. It's EMF free, it's easy to use, and it gives your skin an amazing glow. And I mean it. There are research studies on this. If you don't believe me, look at the effect of red light and collagen and overall skin, fine lines. There's peer-reviewed studies across the board. If you want to upgrade your skin, go try the Bond Charge face mask. It's a cute little red light mask. It's easy to wear, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, whatever you have. Use it every day and see how it improves. To get this face mask, visit the link in the show notes and use the code DRG. You're going to save 15% off of your order. That is DRG from Bond Charge. Let's talk about something that is crucial for our health, but often overlooked. It is hydration. And I'm not talking about just drinking water. I'm talking about getting electrolytes. Sometimes water doesn't even hydrate you, right? You need electrolytes. I love LMNT. I especially love their brand new LMNT sparkling drink that I keep in my fridge. I use it after every sauna session. And what really sets LMNT apart is their science-based formula. They actually provide 2 to 3 times more sodium than the typical recommendation, plus the perfect balance of potassium and magnesium. And they do it without any sugar, any artificial ingredients, none of that nasty stuff, right? And they have their 16-ounce sparkling cans. And this is the on-the-go hydration. They have different flavors. You put it in the fridge, and when you need something cold to really hit, whoa. I'm telling you right now, you're going to love it. Whether you're an athlete or just on a low-carb diet, or you want to avoid headaches, brain fog coming from electrolyte imbalance, LMNT is simple, it's easy to use, it's tasty. You get a free sample pack with any purchase at drinklmnt.com/DRG. That is DRINKLMNT.com/DRG.
Yes and no. There's a little bit of a twist in there. Not that older homes are going to be slam dunk healthy. It's the way that construction practices have evolved. And I would say, yeah, from the 1950s to where we are now. Back then, homes were built out. And even if you were to remodel an older home, you look at that framing lumber, that is solid. That is like forest grown trees. Now, framing lumber is pretty soft. It's farm grown, so it's completely different quality, yes, but also back in the 50s, we didn't have these energy efficiency requirements. Some homes were even built without insulation. They were considered leaky homes, meaning like through the exterior, the building enclosure, air is coming in through those walls. And so air is coming in and also drying those walls. So if we did have water damage, those homes were a bit easier to dry out. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing because we have air infiltration all through the exterior. We've got these leaky attics. But what we've transitioned to most recently is more airtight homes. As a code requirement, they need to be semi-airtight, meaning we've got these airtight walls that no longer can dry. So we've come a long way, and great that we don't have these leaky homes, but we haven't quite caught up with how we're conditioning these spaces, how we're managing this indoor air quality of these airtight homes. So older homes can potentially be renovated to be healthy. But I'm still very much an advocate for like new construction done right.
Okay. Is there an organizational group of architects or contractors that are new wave of people that are doing things right? Is there a centralized organization that people can even Google?
Good question. And maybe one day, yeah. But yes and no. Yes, if anyone wants to like start kind of searching for better performing homes, a really good starting point is like building science organizations. They're really focused on like how the home is functioning as a whole. Passive home building, which is kind of the highest level you can build a home, meaning that a passive home is essentially there's no air infiltration whatsoever. So it's a really high standard of building. So those could be good starting points. But even when I consult on those projects, there's still not always a focus on occupant health and water damage. They're building really quality homes, but we still got to get like the air filtration, water filtration, leak management, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember looking, and my brother's really into this, so I remember looking, and there really isn't any online organization where we can find someone who goes, okay, I have all the know-how on building a holistic home, and I created this giant organization of all of these architects that are trained by this organization or something, where they're building these homes. Like I know exactly what you're saying. Like I was looking into it, and I go, well, what about like HVAC systems, right? Like where's that standard of air filtration? And my brother's more into like the biophilic internal, like, wow, I have plants and the curved walls and things like that.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that those two resources that you mentioned, are those websites or,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So there is like building science organizations. People can get certified in passive home design. So these are like really good starting points to start searching. The problem is they're not everywhere. There's certain states and certain counties that these resources and these individuals aren't building there or they're not available there. So it's not yet what I'm hoping to become as the new norm way of building. But yes, there are people that can take these classes and go through these
I
building
see.
science organizations to get certified in building a better way.
I see. Okay. And then we as the consumers, because I'm hearing that that's certification for people like architects.
Architects, builders, consultants. Yeah, those are good starting points. And then start by like communicating your expectations around those.
So if I'm building a home, what should I look for in an architect? Are they going to be like certified by?
They could be like a passive home architect. Yeah.
It's called passive home
Yeah.
architects. Okay.
Yeah. So you
That's
can be a
something.
passive home architect, you could be a passive home builder. Those are good places to start. There's a handful of them around. So I would start there and just it can be a process of just trying to connect with people in the area. So if we're here in Southern California and the only passive home architect is in Sacramento, might reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'm building down here. Do you have any resources in this area?" So I'd start calling and asking.
Start calling and asking. Okay. Um, if what about like we see a lot of these building biologists?
Yeah.
Is that someone who would help guide us to these things, or like do we start learning from building biologists, we as consumers I'm talking about, because
Mm-hmm.
there's people viewing and listening, they go, oh, I want to build a home, but now I'm hearing this podcast and my architect was not talking about this stuff and I have kids.
Yeah.
Like it should is there any, I'm trying to just gather all the resources for us because I'm hearing that it's a very undeveloped organization or like tracked.
Yeah.
So like I really want to empower everyone viewing and listening to go, okay, at least I have somewhat of a plan. You know I'm serious about training. You know I'm serious about recovery. You know I'm serious about getting really fit. At my age, 40 years old, we want to be like I'm 20-year-old fit, right? And I learned a lot about quality supplements over my years, especially in school. And let me tell you, there's a supplement called Puori O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil. It is the best one in the industry, okay? Best across the board. They only use small fish. They test every single batch against 200 contaminants, 200. And it's essential, especially because a lot of us have really low EPA and DHA. When I was running tests, nutritional tests on people, this was oftentimes something that was really, really low, and it's essential for heart health, brain health, eye health. And guess what? Overall research is also showing that EPA and DHA balance, omega-3s is really, really important for muscle recovery and strength. So if you're active, it's essential. This is a go-to that I put every morning in my little cup. 2,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA in their natural form, and it's certified both clean and sustainable. I know I'm getting the best omega-3s in the game. Puori is offering you 20% off of this fish oil and actually all of their products. Just go to puori.com/DRG and use the code DRG at checkout. That is PUORI.com/DRG.
Yeah. So I would say kind of the roadmap, if I could lay it out, which is why I suppose my business even exists, is because there's this big gap in getting somebody from the desire to build a healthy home to actually being built. So we help facilitate architect selection, contractor selection, and all the details with building. But when starting out, got to start with a piece of land, getting a solid piece of land. And then with the architect, we set up like a list of questions, like a good set of like vetting questions, asking things like, how familiar are you with building biology or passive home design? They may not be familiar at all. One of my favorite questions to ask contractors is, how do you address moldy lumber? You'll usually get a good reading there because the contractor might be like, what are you talking about? Lumberyard mold's harmless. We see it all day long. We use it all the time. That could be a red flag. Or the builder might respond like, I've had other clients in the past ask me about this, and we're pretty cognizant about not using moldy lumber. We cover it, when inclement weather's coming. So sometimes asking these questions to contractors can give you enough of a signal of like, oh, I might want to stay clear of this builder if it feels like they're not kind of on the same page with you. So asking and vetting these questions that are important to you during the process But to your question about gaining some like knowledge around it, YouTube's a great place to start
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of searching topics. I've seen there's like Facebook groups. We try to put out a lot of like free educational content. Overall, you want to feel empowered and at least like have a good knowledge going into the build process of what you're even expecting. Because it's a big process, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
where do you even start when you feel like you don't know what you don't know?
Hmm. That's good, like tangible, because at least we have like, even asking questions is going to be important, but like we got to know the questions to ask,
Yeah.
especially if like you're kind of just getting into this and being like, well, I want to build a healthy home for me and my kids, for my whole family, for people that visit, my pets. Everyone is affected by what's going on in the home. You mentioned EMFs before, and it's something that we don't necessarily talk about, but do you find that the person just has to be hypersensitive to be affected by it, or does it at some point affect us? And when I'm talking about EMFs, is it like, how are we being exposed to them? Is it true that if we live by a telephone pole, it's going to make us sick? Like, how are EMFs starting to play a role into home health?
Well, maybe you've seen a correlation to this as well, because I really see that mold sensitivity and EMF sensitivity typically go hand in hand. They're usually, if someone's really EMF sensitive, there might be some underlying mold illness there. So we do see somewhat of a correlation to those sensitivities. And it again kind of goes back to the hierarchy. Like we can definitely prioritize EMF mitigation. I refer to it as like creating a dumb home instead of all of these smart homes. And that doesn't take a lot of effort. It could be like hardwiring televisions. Now you can get like hardwired doorbells with the camera. They don't have to be Wi-Fi. Hardwire your security system. Hardwire as much as you possibly can. It's a pretty inexpensive way to mitigate EMFs. I'm more of the mindset of let's get rid of the exposure instead of trying to harmonize it or use devices to lessen our burden. Same thing with mold. If we could just remove it, a lot better than trying to kill it or treat it or
Mm-hmm.
so that we don't have this concern of it growing back. So yeah, if we can avoid living next to the 5G towers, those are great starting points. But there's also building materials like metal roofs are great for EMF outside exposures. So
Mm.
there are some strategies in building that can help lessen the burden.
If you're EMF sensitive, smart homes are not a good thing.
No, no, smart homes and the Wi-Fi, this and that. And, now we've got dishwashers that turn on remotely and the oven that heats up on our way home. If we could just kind of stick with the basic light switches and hardwire as much as possible, then you don't have all these devices that can break too. Because
Mm-hmm.
that is a common complaint with smart homes is just like the technology is outdated. Now we have to update all of these
I
switches.
see.
So just stick with the basics.
Man, the old school days were the best, right? Like
Yeah.
we didn't really have to bother or worry about all of these things that are going on. Like I have a sense. I'm fairly sensitive to a lot of things, but and
Mm,
I've worked on my nervous system and grounded it over time. So I became less sensitive, and also, yes, I can feel when there's something inundated. There's too much electronics. I can feel the peace of like going out to a cabin where there's like nothing around me and it's just way different of there's
yeah.
no internal buzzing that is consistent. And I know the people who are viewing and listening who may live in a city or have this experience, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to homes, okay, so we covered the mold, we covered EMFs, we talked a little bit about the smart meters, right? Um, the I know that a lot of the homes are being built in this minimalist approach. People want to do like really minimalist stuff. Do you think that a minimalist home internally will affect our mental health and our and our just overall experience versus a home that has more life to it, more greenery, sort of that biophilic design as we were talking about.
Yeah.
I just want to go, like, it feels like we moved away from like art and character and nature and sacrificed all of that for these cookie cutter homes.
You're talking about all the beige homes?
Yeah, all the beige homes. What happened to the ones with personality that I grew up with on my block?
Well, okay, so minimalist and kind of the beige and blah homes, I kind of see those as like different
Okay.
categories. Because when I think of minimalist, I think of like when you walk into your home, does it feel like overstimulating? Is there a lot of
Ah,
clutter? Is there a lot
mm,
of just stuff? And that's kind of more of like minimalist, what I had in mind when you said that, because I do feel like I am more of a minimalist in the design because everything that you have in your home requires maintenance. The pictures on the wall, the decor,
mhm,
everything requires some level of dusting, cleaning, maintaining. So the less that we have to maintain, especially for sensitive individuals, the better. And it might also really help on our nervous system if we can walk into our homes and feel peace,
mhm,
safety, and not just like, oh my goodness, there's so much jammed in this closet or so much that I haven't like even dusted over the past year. So we can still have character, but if we're just mindful that everything we bring into our home is going to require maintenance.
mm. And it's sometimes it's even subconscious. Like we just have all of this stuff everywhere, and we know that it needs tending to,
Yeah.
but we're just kind of busy with life stuff, you know. And the maintenance, it's like I have so much to tend to in my home that sometimes is even subconscious. We don't even think about it. But I did a post in April about how home clutter could be affecting your mental and physical health, and there's actually
Yes.
research behind it, which is wild. That one went viral. That was like 2 million people it was sent by like 900,000 people. They were just like,
Perfect.
and I was actually thinking that it was sent by one partner to another, being like, "Honey, I told you to do the clutter is a problem," and now this guy is saying that it can give me anxiety and depression and
Yeah.
hypervigilance and just dysregulation. So I love that. Now, when did we move away from? I saw this post, and it was like, if you look at parts of Europe, like even the park benches have character, the garbage cans have character, and then it showed a lot of like the American parks, and it's just so
Hmm.
blah. It's just, what happened? When did we get away from the personality in homes, the art, the architecture, and then move to something that is just gray homes, white homes, and calling it just like these cookie cutter homes? And because there is an effect on our physical and mental health
Yeah.
when we're not exposed to life through the home. it, do you know when we got away from that? And are people
Hmm.
still, is it so popular? Are people demanding these type of homes now?
I think that it really got started with these production homes, with these like build it faster. They're
Hmm.
building production homes in 4 to 6 months.
Wow, you can
That's
get a home in 4 to 6 months?
fast. That is
Wow.
fast. That is far too fast to like allow building materials to dry, let alone any creativity. But the biggest kind of difference that I see, like Europe, Mexico, even, is when you go there, and you probably even saw this in London, when you go to a bathroom there, it's a wet room. That is a toilet, a floating stone sink, and a shower coming off the wall. We don't in these areas, we're not putting wicker basket trash cans, art on the wall, sticking a bunch of stuff under our cabinets, putting like MDF baseboards in a bathroom. Like we've gone the wrong direction, even just with bathrooms alone. Our bathrooms should be wet rooms. They've got a ton of humidity. They're not the place for porous items and materials that can get water damaged.
Mm.
So I think there was probably some aesthetic driving factors behind just, these production builders are buying mass quantities of building materials. So there's not really room for character from one house to another. Um, and building here is expensive,
Oh yeah, for sure. For
very
sure.
expensive.
Yeah, and which brings me to like even here and maybe different other cities, we like the fires just happen, and a lot of these
Yes.
homes just burned up. And I was watching this post from this guy in Europe. He was going, well, you all use a lot of wood in these homes. Like a lot of the homes that we build here are concrete
Mm-hmm.
and brick, and our vacation homes are like wood, or cabin homes are wood. Um, is there a downside to building these homes with wood, and should we be using more concrete or bricks? Is it because like LA code, we have to, because of earthquakes, we have to build with wood? I'm just wondering to myself, living in LA, and for the viewers and listeners who might be piquing their interest,
Yeah.
why don't we see more homes that are like with tougher materials that are fireproof?
Well, overall, there is a national building code,
Mm.
which boggles my mind. How could you have the same building code standards in California that you do in Florida? Like completely different climate zones. Now, each state and then each jurisdiction, they adopt and have their own building codes that supplement that. But it's still wild to me that we would have this blanket universal building code. Like it should be almost like microclimate specific. So I think we need to get there. California has some of the strictest building regulations in the
Oh, is
US.
that right?
It is, there's a ton of regulation, but then we see what happened with the fires here. And we're not new to having big fire outbreaks. 1993, a fire wiped out all of Laguna Beach in the hills.
Mm.
There was a handful of homes that still remained. So it's not necessarily that like building stick framed in wood is a bad building idea. It can be a bad building idea in certain climates, yes. To build a seismically sound earthquake concrete structure here in California, it's going to be really expensive, like very cost
Oh,
prohibitive.
I see.
So it's not that that is going to be the solution. What's happened here with the fires is the air tightness. So we do have fire prone building codes in certain parts of California that are severely susceptible to fire damage. And that requires non combustible eaves. So basically, where your roof overhangs, the underside of it, where the soffit would vent, that's required to be non combustible. But we've still got all these other holes in our attic when we have a ventilated attic,
Mm.
and that's where embers can get in. So these homes are burning from the inside out.
I see.
Embers are getting into the attic is problem number one.
There are some homes, like my friend's home, that didn't burn down, but his neighbors did.
Okay.
Is it because most likely his home was built differently with an attic that wasn't letting in embers?
It could be. So they're already starting to kind of analyze the homes that have the few that have remained like in the
Mm.
Palisades fire and seeing what's been done differently. There's one home that's going around all over and it does not have a ventilated attic. And that they're looking at that to see if, essentially it could be a case study. I am a firm believer that this is happening one, because there's still those 1950 homes in the Palisades that were not built to fire prone standards.
Hmm.
So, what do we do about the homes that are existing? But also, the new construction homes, they're still having this semi leaky
Yeah.
assembly. So, all it takes is air and embers to get into the home somehow to create a fire.
Starting a fire. Wow. And that's just what happened across the board, most likely
Yeah.
for all these houses. There was just the embers coming in. I thought it was burning the outside foundation, and then just it was crumbling. But you're saying it's the fire start inside.
Yeah, so these embers travel really far.
Yeah, I saw videos and pictures. It was crazy.
Yeah, and so a majority of them, it's too early to know exactly what's happening with all of these homes that are burning, but that's how they are essentially jumping from one house to another, is
Mm.
that these embers, because the way that a ventilated attic is designed, when you have what they call low top ventilation, like along your soffits or in the low part of the roof. And then you also have ventilation on the high part of the roof. That's specifically designed to create this airflow from the low to the high. So your attic is always pulling in and moving air around. Well, it's constantly pulling air and it could pull in those embers.
I see. I see. Okay. Um, Now we got some explanation about the fire. Now we got some clarity on that. Very cool. For someone who, and I want to go back because I've experienced mold. It got me really sick a few years ago. I threw away everything I owned, pretty much. Like I went through
Jeez.
that whole process, and then it hit me again, and then I got rid of like 60% of the things I owned. So it is like I had to do a lot of nervous system work to even like be okay, you know, because like it's very traumatic. And like I want viewers and listeners to know, like if you've experienced mold, it has a marked effect on your nervous system. This regulation effect where not only are we worried that things are moldy, or if like this material, this one material in your house is the thing that's making it your whole house moldy, which is not likely. Um, it stays with us, and our nervous system needs to be retrained. So I went through a whole process to do that. But I'm saying all this because people who are wanting to build a home, you mentioned the one thing is making sure the lumber is taken care of, that your contractors are aware of this, making sure that the foundation is clean. But what about when the home is built? Should we have a full system air filtration from the whole house? What are like some of the really best things you can do if you're worried about protecting the home from water damage and actually getting good air circulation?
That's a really good question. And what I'm seeing really across the board with clients that I'm working with, and in some cases there's CIRS, there's Lyme, they're very, very chemically sensitive and also mold sensitive, is that a big piece to that healing journey is actually being involved. Whether this is like completely renovating, like down to the studs, being able to almost see behind the walls gives you that peace of mind. A big thing that we do with all of our projects is leak testing, giving you that peace of mind like, we just installed this brand new window. How do we know if it's leaking? Well, we don't unless it's actually leak tested, and having that process a part of the journey. But going through some really key parts is, we want to build a healthy home, yes, but what happens if we build a healthy home, we move in, a week later the washing machine overflows, or there's the kids overflow the bathtub? Like,
Yeah.
how do we prevent these things? And I call it a leak management plan. We've got to have a plan to not only build the home healthy, but have safeguards in place. And I think that can be really healing. And also, we don't ever want our homeowners laying in bed looking up thinking, oh my goodness, is that toilet leaking? Is that leaking? Like, we
Mm-hmm.
got to calm our systems and feel peace in our
Yeah.
home, and not, we don't want to be afraid of our home. We don't want to be living in a space thinking, is this leaking? Is this, having this fear? So a part of that is having access to these locations, like a simple access door where we can open, peek behind the wall of, we put them in the ceiling of all of our multi-level homes, so that below that second level toilet, we can just pop down an access door. Maybe we have a leak detector in there,
Mm-hmm.
but having these safeguards, also whole home leak detecting, is something that anyone can add, new construction or on their existing homes
Oh, wow.
now. And that's something that is monitoring the flow of your plumbing and will alert you if it detects a leak or a micro leak that might be going on in your plumbing behind your walls.
I see. I see. Very, so there, it gives us the peace of mind. And I know for all the people who've experienced mold, when you have a peace of mind in your home, you can go, okay, I can relax because this room or this home overall isn't going to be vulnerable, or minimize its vulnerability to leak and then ultimately mold. That's what we want. We want to be in a home that is just like, safe,
Yeah.
like and I love that we can leak proof our home even retroactively if we're living in a home, not even a new build.
Yeah.
That's really empowering because, eventually things will happen, right? Like you live in a home, you have
Right.
kids, especially if you have kids, they're going to spill stuff, things are going to leak, they're going to leave the faucet running, it's going to overflow the bathtub. And so having something there is going to be really important. Now, are most homes that are being built, like I don't know about this, if I want full house filtration, HVAC system, high quality,
Okay.
is that happening as a standard right now, or do you have to ask for it and pay a lot of money for that?
Oh, the HVAC guys out there. It's a really big deal. And the reason it's becoming such an issue and we hear about so much illness within new construction is because, again, we're building these airtight homes, but we're not pairing the mechanical system with these airtight homes. So in some cases, we've got an airtight home, but we've got a mechanical system that's just recirculating that indoor air, not doing anything to control CO or CO2 or humidity. And so it's really important, if doing a new construction home, that there are actual calculations done that are taking into consideration how much fresh air needs to be brought in. Not all homes are bringing in fresh air. So pairing the mechanical design with how your home is functioning is so important so
Hmm.
that you can control humidity. There's plenty of people that are living in their homes and they've gotten these hygrometers that tell
Mm-hmm.
you the humidity levels, and they're thinking, I cannot get my humidity down. It's always 70%, 75. If you're in Houston, sometimes it's like 90% humidity
Wow.
inside.
Whoa.
We should be able to control the humidity levels inside our home, ideally somewhere between 40 to 50%. But if we're unable to control the humidity inside of our homes, that's when problems can happen. Because as you probably know, mold doesn't need a catastrophic water damage event, it needs humidity and
Humidity.
dust.
Yeah, yeah. I have one of those monitors downstairs in my kitchen. I'm always looking at it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll just take a look. I'm like, what number is that at? We keep it under 50 over
Yes.
here, but for me, if it's high, I think I get good airflow because I can open all the windows and it kind of helps with the humidity. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like, I'm like, I can't lower it. I wish I had a button that I could just lower the humidity here. I have a dehumidifier,
Yeah.
just like a portable one that I can put in areas that are pretty humid. But it's like, what do you do at that point? Yeah. So
Yeah, because we have a lot of people have the standalone air purifiers or standalone dehumidifier. We've got like all of these kind of units all over our
yeah.
homes, but ideally, those would all be centralized within our mechanical system so that the air that is flowing through all of the ductwork is like clean, dehumidified, filtered air.
Mm,
Because now we've got this air going through our ductwork. It's probably got a little bit too much particulate and humidity in it.
right.
So we ideally, if we were to be doing a new build, we'd want to really centralize all that.
Okay. Um, and it's interesting information because, like I said, I haven't built a home, but it's so important to know these things.
Yeah.
And we can retroactively do it even in a home, right? Can we get the lungs of our home reset by having the best HVAC guy in town come and do it for us?
Hmm.
Or female.
I don't believe so. And I'll tell you why. Because I know duct cleaning is a big thing. And maybe when you went through like the mold
Yeah.
scenarios, it was like, oh, we got to clean the ductwork and, decontaminate it. The truth is, ductwork can't be decontaminated. 99% of residential homes have flexible ductwork, kind of looks like a foil wrapped slinky. You can't clean that. It's got so many nooks and crannies, and
Uh,
some duct cleaning companies, like, it could even penetrate some of that ductwork. So I don't think duct cleaning is really going to get anyone to having healthier, cleaner indoor air. A lot of people may disagree with me, but um, it's kind of difficult to retroactively take your mechanical system and stick a dehumidifier and stick an air filter on that, because we want to be careful about like air volume and not almost like stressing out the unit. So yeah, it can get real technical real quick. But I do think it's like a very high priority when building or doing like an extensive renovation.
Beautiful, beautiful information. I love this. We're feeling empowered now that
I
like,
hope so.
kind of like, whoa, okay. It's, you know what I wish? I wish that there was a like standard and we were looked out for, but it doesn't work that way for anything, for food, for pharmaceutical. Like, I wish there was a standard where the person living in the home was the highest priority versus like profit or flipping a home as fast as possible. But you and I both know it's not like that. But it seems to me that like we just have to be vigilant and do our own work. It's like, viewers and listeners, if you want to build a home, start looking at all the resources, be a researcher, gather the information, ask the right questions. We're going to get all of your information at the end. So get your information so we can really do it for ourselves and advocate for ourselves. It's like, it's crazy. It's just like in our health journeys in medicine, we have to advocate for ourselves. Now we got to do it for when we're building our own home, but there's resources now that we're learning. There's questions to ask. Is there anything that's really important for you that we haven't covered that is going to be telltale information on for us to move into a new home that is so important for us to hold on?
Well, I think you made a good point about like, oh, I just wish we had like this solution. It's the best comparison I can have, and probably so many people can understand this, is it would be like if we were to rely on the food pyramid for our diet. Like that's kind of similar to if we're going to rely on building codes and these local officials for them to create a healthy home for us. So we have to be our own advocate and researcher and educate ourselves when it comes to like nutrition and taking care of our bodies. And unfortunately, it doesn't stop there because we spend so much time in our homes, and it's like the biggest investment we're ever going to make, and we're just leaving it up to the hands of the contractor who did the awesome job for our sister down the street. It's like, no, we got to like really, really be involved. So it's a process. It's a emotional investment. The biggest thing I would say is just stand up for what your expectations are, because it's like, what other time in your life are you spending so much money and paying for a service for somebody to tell you, no, I'm not going to do that for you. I'm not going to use that type of insulation that you want because you're chemically sensitive. No, we don't do it. Like, there's some bad stories out there of the way contractors can treat homeowners, or just, I've been doing this for 30 years. Just let me do it the way I do it.
Right.
Like, there's no other time in our life that we're going to be spending money to be treated like that. Probably a good correlation with some doctors out there too.
Yeah.
But we got to be advocates, right?
We have to be advocates. I've heard a lot of horror stories. I know people who've built homes and like, it's like a classical tale, the contractor versus the prospective homeowner. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of arguments. There's a lot of just like miscommunication, whatever it is. So I've seen the headache secondhand. I'm not excited to do it. And I say not excited because I know what I want in a home, and I don't know if a home has that right now. So like, I would love to build a home one day. It's really expensive out here, as you know. So
California's expensive.
California's
to build.
a little crazy. It's expensive to build. So where can we learn more information about your work?
Well, I don't have a ton of time for multiple platforms, so I just kind of stick to Instagram. That's what I try to do best, and just providing as much free information as I can. So on Instagram, Holistic Homes by Christine. We have a book coming out this year.
Cool.
That I am so excited about, as just like a resource, kind of filling that need of educating and like getting homeowners excited and prepared for building or renovating. So we will have that hopefully by the end of this year. But Instagram's the best way to get a hold of me.
Instagram's the best way. And what's the name of the book going to be?
We haven't gone there
We
yet.
don't know it yet. Okay,
Yeah,
but it's
still in a lot of development, a lot of time. Gosh, there's
I
a
can
lot of
imagine.
time into writing this. So
Later this year?
later this year.
Okay, and in that book, will it sort of be a guide for prospective homeowners?
Oh, it's going to be everything. Everything that I've got, I'm giving all of my information out there so that people can really take it and
Okay.
apply it. I know many homeowners don't want to kind of go through that whole process by themselves, which is why we do all of the consulting work that we do, which is really successful in that you had touched on, like, probably get a lot of pushback from builders and architects. And the truth is, no, a lot of architects and builders are thankful that the homeowners reached out to us and had them a part of the build process, because not all builders are negligent, malice, and
Right.
doing terrible work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of it is just they don't know what they don't know. They haven't had another client ever ask them these questions. And so a lot of builders are excited to learn alternative building materials and better ways to build, because 70% of construction litigation is due to water damage.
Wow. Is that right?
Yeah. So builders that, don't want to be a part of that, or are at least waking up to understanding that there is a better way to build, they're welcoming of, better
Yeah.
strategies.
They don't want to go to court.
No.
They don't want a case on their hands. Okay, cool. Amazing stuff. I just love that you found your passion and you found a space that really needs people taking the bull by the horns and being able to guide us, because like you and I both know, we have to be advocates for ourselves, but like we need resources to do that. And you're providing so much for us. And I can't wait to get that book. I'm going to hold on to it for a few years, but when it's time, I'm going to go, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Architect, Mr. and Mrs. Contractor, let's look at all these notes. Do you have this certification? Do you know about this? And just really going in with a positive attitude and getting a nice build one day. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.